Hey everyone, and thanks for jumping back into the cryptoverse. Today we're going to talk about Ethereum, and we're going to be talking about the potential re-accumulation phase of a lifetime. So if you guys like the content, please subscribe to the channel, give the video a thumbs up, and also check out the Telegram channel, which you can find a link to in the description below. Let's go ahead and jump in. So if you guys remember a few months ago, back when Ethereum was at this level, I published a lot of videos, and one of them was actually called Ethereum, the accumulation phase of a lifetime. And the reason why I made that video was because not that I was not clairvoyant or anything in the sense of knowing we were immediately about to go up. In fact, if you go back and watch that video, we said it's always possible we come down first, right? But if we do go down, it would probably be short-lived, right? Just like it was back in March and just like it was here. So if it did go down, it would probably be short-lived, but there was a decent chance we were going to go up. And one of the reasons why we made this video was because the rest of the market was absolutely booming. A lot of altcoins were doing very well, and Ethereum was kind of just sitting back, biding its time. We made another video called, it takes giants to move mountains. Is, the larger the market cap coin, the harder it's going to be to move, at least, very quickly. You can obviously Bitcoin has been moving recently, but when we talk about really moving, going parabolic, there were altcoins that are going crazy back then. And so it just seemed like Ethereum was biding its time. Now, we come to the present day and we say, well, you know what? We're no longer at our fair value. So the fair value of Ethereum right now, according to this logarithmic regression band, which is fit to quote-unquote non-bubble data, puts it at approximately $277, somewhere in that ballpark. So that would be the fair value. But we recognize that the fair value is only visited few and far between. And in fact, we spend a lot of time going up, well above the fair value and spending a decent amount of time there. Now that we're at the top of the regression band, you could, we actually have exited it slightly. If we zoom in, you can see that we've recently moved above the regression band. So this reaccumulation phase, or accumulation phase, whatever you want to call it, is certainly riskier than the one we had a few months ago. So the one we had back in June, where we called this the accumulation phase of a lifetime, the risk was a lot lower. And this channel is all about, managing risk, not FOMOing into the market. Now that we're up here, rest assured that the risk is a lot higher. Okay, it's a lot higher. There's no way to really sugarcoat it. It is because we've moved away from what we would presume the fair value to be. Now, with that said, it doesn't mean that Ethereum cannot rally much higher. In fact, if you watch my videos, I've speculated several times that I think Ethereum will rally to several $1,000s this market cycle. The question is, what is your time frame? Okay, what is your time frame in terms of accumulation, and what can you live with, right? If short-term price movements take Ethereum back down. So if you have this macroscopic view of the market and you recognize that Bitcoin is more or less just in this long-term accumulation phase that it's been in for a long time, and that we also go to the upper part of this band every so often, right? So you can see these accumulation phases, and then every so often we go to the upper part of the band, the upper band up here, and then we say, you know what? Well, we're still, we actually have left the band just barely for Bitcoin, but we're still, close to it. There's still a potentially long way to go to get to, this upper regression band up here. Now, with that said, if the thesis is that Bitcoin will go to approximately $100,000, it's approximate, as I said before, what's a few K among friends? If that's the thesis, then it would lead us to believe that Ethereum will likely do quite well as well, being second in market cap, essentially having most developers in the space building on Ethereum as leaps and bounds, basically above every other project. I think the only more well-known cryptocurrency is Bitcoin, but you could argue that Ethereum has a lot more utility than Bitcoin does. So the thing with Ethereum is one of the things we've showed with Bitcoin is this this bull market band, right? And if you follow the channel for long enough, you remember that I typically like using the 20-week SMA as the bull market support. But I got so many comments on my channel of why don't you use the 21-week EMA? And because I figured out that, a lot of people want to see the 21-week EMA instead of the 20-week SMA. So I just combined them and I just color coded the region between them. So what this ends up providing for us is our bull market support region. Okay, so this is our bull market support region. If we fall below it, it typically is not good, especially for Ethereum. In fact, every time that Bitcoin has fallen below the 20-week moving average, and if you had calculated what the Ethereum valuation was at that time and then looked to see where it was when Bitcoin crossed back above it, Ethereum had always lost value during that time. I think it's happened like 6 or 7 times. So now we say, well, it looks like there's a chance. I mean, you can see back over here that Bitcoin, the bull market over here was held. The support line was this band you can see. So now if we zoom in, we followed this move every step of the way, and it got pretty testy in here when we were testing the 20-week moving average. But we held it, and the thesis again was that if it holds, then the market has a habit of turning around very quickly, and that's exactly what happened, right? It turned around on a dime. If it had done this, it would have been the bad news bears for a little while. Okay, so now that Bitcoin has held it, it's moved back up, and you might wonder, well, why has Ethereum not moved? For instance, if you actually look at the peak Ethereum value at 0.04 and multiply it by the current Bitcoin price, it would, if Ethereum could reach that level again, it would actually put Ethereum at approximately $650 at the same Bitcoin valuation that it had this past summer, keeping in mind where the current price of Bitcoin is. So the same ratio that it had this past summer multiplied by the current price of Bitcoin would give you approximately a $650 Ethereum. Okay, this is what it would give you, approximately speaking. So then, why is it not there, right? Why is it not there? Well, we recognize that Ethereum has these subcycles with respect to Bitcoin, and also when Bitcoin volatility is very high, when it's moving up really quickly or down really quickly, or when it's just simply testing the 20-week moving average, Ethereum tends to bleed against Bitcoin. I know that might not sound fair, but that's just what it tends to do. However, there's this certain Goldilocks period for Ethereum where it really does well, and that's when Bitcoin is well above its 20-week moving average and moving sideways. Okay, yes, Ethereum will slowly trend up with the market if Bitcoin's going up. But you can see, it's clear as day on the macro scale, the Ethereum Bitcoin ratio has bled significantly over the last few months, right? From the top, in fact, it's bled approximately 34%. I mean, we've seen these types of bleeds before, right? These 30% bleeds before. But again, it calls into question, okay, well, why is Ethereum not moving? Again, it's because the volatility of Bitcoin has been too high. And if Bitcoin can just simply cool off at this level, Ethereum likely will start doing very well. Even if Bitcoin retraced, the beauty of this move here is even if Bitcoin retraced, 20%, it would still be well above the 20-week moving average. And this historically is where we want to hold. This is our line of defense in a bull market. So if this holds, if Bitcoin starts moving sideways, then I think that Ethereum will be a catalyst for Ethereum to start moving. Of course, this doesn't even take into account the recent developments with Ethereum 2.0. We're not even going to talk about that. I mean, but know that could help catalyze a move as well. Now, if you follow this channel for a while, you also recognize that we've talked about this theoretical, move of Ethereum against Bitcoin in the first quarter of the year. And why do we say that? Well, again, just as a reminder, especially because I think there's a lot of new people coming into the space given the recent price movement, if you take a look at Bitcoin, or the Ethereum Bitcoin ratio, it has always netted a pretty decent short-term ROI within 90 days if bought in December with Bitcoin. Okay, so back in 2015, December of 2015, had you bought Ethereum with Bitcoin, you would have netted 1,760%, not against USD, against Bitcoin. Then in December of 2016, if you sold in the first quarter, so the idea is to sell in the first quarter, or that's just looking at a short-term 90-day ROI, you don't have to sell. Again, this is not financial advice. not even taking it up to this peak over here in the summer, but just saying, okay, well, December to the first quarter, this was a 620% move. In the next year, it was a over 300% move. The following year was not so much. It was more like a 50% move. And then last year, we identified this trend, right? We identified this trend and said, you know what? It seems like we're going to see the same thing again. And we did. And it was a 63% move. One of the things that we've said before, too, is that you can't always assume that this is going to take place. What is also, I would consider necessary, is to see a downtrend of the Ethereum Bitcoin ratio in the fourth quarter of the year. And we've seen that. Every single year, Ethereum trends down against Bitcoin. Every single year, it trends down. And you can see it year after year after year. Even this one. We trended down from October to a new local low. And we speculated that this would help catalyze another move in the first quarter of the year. If you look at Ethereum, the best moves that it has had, historically speaking, were in the first quarter of the year against Bitcoin. Yes, it's had some good moves in the summer as well, but for the most part, its moves in the first quarter of the year have been remarkable, especially looking at, say, a short-term 90-day ROI if buying in December. So we look at present day and we say, well, what's the trend? What does the trend need to be? Well, the trend needs to be in the fourth quarter, the Ethereum Bitcoin ratio needs to bleed. And it's done that quite well, quite efficiently, in fact. The second thing, which is really nice to see, is, well, why is it bleeding? Is it bleeding because Bitcoin is bleeding? Or is it bleeding for some other reason? Well, it's certainly not bleeding because Bitcoin's bleeding and Ethereum is just bleeding faster. It's bleeding because Bitcoin's going through the roof. Bitcoin is going into its own short-term speculative bubble, right? It's at $15,672. To give you an idea how far we've come, at the beginning of October, so literally a month ago, in the last month, the price of Bitcoin has gone up 50%. So it's gone up 50% in a relatively short period of time. So Ethereum, in my opinion, is just biding its time. Another thing is, as we've talked about this bull market support for Bitcoin, you can also see it roughly applies for Ethereum too, generally being a nice support line in a bull market. Not quite as much as Bitcoin. You can see that it did come through right here back in December of 2016. But again, this led us into that theoretical December buy of Ethereum with Bitcoin off to new highs in the first quarter of the year. Okay, and then if we just continue on, right, we can see that later on this acted as a support line, and then once it broke, we did not break above it again, and this was once the whole market capitalization of crypto started plummeting. Now the interesting thing is, I mean, you can see we oscillated around it for a while, not having any real luck at holding it over the last couple years. However, if you look recently, we have been holding it. In fact, if you look at this one, we held it for a few weeks, we moved up, we were above it for a while, we got close to it, we moved up. Again, we came back down to it, tested it as support, and we're moving up. Okay, so Bitcoin did the same thing, right? It came up. So let's it came up like this. It moved sideways into the 20-week. It came up. It then came back down to test the 20-week, and then exploded. And then if you look at Ethereum, the same thing, except, well, it hasn't exploded yet. Okay, so it's risky. I'm not going to say nothing's a sure thing. If you look at the Ethereum Bitcoin ratio, these trend lines that you see, I drew at the beginning of the year. So you might say, oh, well, the trend line broke. Well, yeah, it did break. It also broke in May. And remember, these trend lines were drawn like 8, 9, 10 months ago. Sometime like in the first quarter of the year is when I drew these trend lines, identifying this, this momentum shift in the market. Okay, from going generally down to generally up. Now, with that said, obviously they're imaginary lines. They don't have to respect anything that I draw, especially one that I drew so long ago. And we said before that there's a good chance we're going to continue to capitulate against Bitcoin, especially historically speaking, thinking about Bitcoin being a good time to trade into Ethereum in December of the year. Now, that does not always mean that corresponds to the lowest Ethereum Bitcoin valuation. I mean, historically speaking, if you look here, the lowest one was in September, but there was still a good December buy. Okay, there's been plenty of times where maybe you could have bought it at a slightly lower price than December, but it didn't change the fact that December was a good buy. For instance, here you could have bought it at this Ethereum Bitcoin ratio all the way up 0.0014, but in December it was still a good buy. Okay, so that's just something to take into consideration. We also recognize, that I would say this channel is smart enough to recognize that trying to predict the bottom is a fool's errand, right? It's just going to be really hard to do. So with that in mind, do you wait until December to accumulate? I think this would be a little bit silly. It could work out, but my strategy would be to just, scoop up Ethereum when I can. And assuming that my outlook on this is not the next like week or two, right? I have a longer outlook than that, but I do think that we will turn around at some point. I just don't know exactly when it'll be. But when it does turn around and Ethereum gets moving, I think it will be quite an incredible move. So if you go back and look at the Ethereum valuation, we are above the regression band. Now, if Bitcoin were to just completely fake everyone out and then just drop all the way back down to like 10K or something, rest assured that Ethereum will drop as well, right? Rest assured that Ethereum will most likely drop as well. If Bitcoin were to drop like if it were to drop like 30 to 40%, if it were to go back to say the 20-week moving average, then Ethereum would likely drop as well. It could drop back to the fair value. It could even drop below. But again, there's no free lunch, right? You have to take risks. They're calculated risks. Buying Ethereum up here is a lot more risky than it was buying it over here when we made the first video calling, Ethereum the accumulation phase of a lifetime. I think this was a better accumulation phase because it had basically all the same signals, but we were at the fair value. Now we're having a lot of these nice bullish signals, but we are significantly above what I would consider to be the fair value. In fact, we're approximately 50% above it. Be that as it may, it still doesn't change the fact that it still could be a really decent price to get in, considering that Ethereum, if you follow the channel, we speculate that it could easily go to several $1,000s this market cycle. So again, there's no free lunch. You have to take the risks. If you think it's worth the risk, you can take it. If you don't, then that's fine. But again, remember, I do already own a lot of Ethereum, and I'm continuing to accumulate it, right? I'm continuing to accumulate it even at these levels, if that tells you anything. But I recognize that, as I said before, it could go down in the short term. But there's a lot of really bullish indicators right now that make me think there's a really decent chance that Ethereum will rally from this point. It just might not happen tomorrow, but in the foreseeable future, as long as Bitcoin just stays somewhat bullish, I see no reason why it won't. And all really Bitcoin needs to do, if Bitcoin keeps moving up like it has been, Ethereum will probably continue to move up as well, but it might not keep pace with Bitcoin. If Bitcoin can just cool down at some point, even if it corrects, right? I mean, one thing, right, is, as we said, is if it corrects, let's say it corrects 15%, it's still going to be at like $13,000. And then if it does correct, Ethereum will likely correct too. But then if Bitcoin starts moving sideways at 13K, it's still like going to be significantly above its 20-week. It would still be enough to catalyze a likely Ethereum move. So I think there's a lot of reasons to be bullish about Ethereum right now. I think the next few years will be great for the asset class as a whole as more eyes look onto the market. So, if you guys enjoyed the video, I would encourage you to subscribe to the channel, give the video a thumbs up. We also have a Telegram channel. You can find a link to that in the description below. And then also we do have the premium list. It's at intothecryptoverse.com. The website's actually currently down, so I'm trying to figure out what's going on. But if you want to get access to it, you can sign up at patreon.com/intothecryptoverse, and there's also a link to that in the description below. You get access to weekly reports, weekly videos on the premium list, on a Telegram alerts channel, a risk dashboard, a strategies dashboard, a whole lot of stuff. Also, I recently started adding some of the trading view indicators. So for instance, this one, this bull market indicator, I recently added that one. The next one I'm going to add, and I'm slowly getting everyone who wants to be on the premium list access to this. The next one that I'm adding is this regression band for Bitcoin. Probably the one after that will be the Ethereum regression band. So I'm just trying to add more value to to the premium list. So again, if you guys want to sign up, you can check it out in the description below. If not, that's fine. At least subscribe to the channel. Help me get to 50,000 subscribers. And give the video a thumbs up. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye.